About to be joined by Shannon Spake on the Discover Hotline. How crazy and wild was the race itself? That's as exhilarating of an ending as you can get.
Well, I mean, I told you last week that Talladega is, that racetrack is my favorite racetrack to go to, 100%. I told you last week if you had one race to watch every single year, Talladega would be the one to watch because it's just so amazing. One of my favorite things to do ever when I covered racing was to stand on top of that hauler and to watch those cars go through the front stretch at full speed. And that's honestly one of the reasons why when all of this went down this weekend with Bubba Wallace, it's so hard to defend a place where something like this happened. And that was part of the story for me. And I've been listening all morning long, and I have some answers for you guys.
Yes.
So first one, I think you kind of said like cameras, right?
Yes.
So here's the deal, Clay, right? Okay, so yes, normally there are cameras in that garage. Listen, there are 140,000 square feet of social engagement areas inside the garage stalls, right? Fans can walk through there. They can see teams working on the cars. So yes, there are cameras. But because of the current climate, these cars are literally coming off the haulers. They aren't even going into the garage. They're going straight to tech, and then they're going out to the grid. So what NASCAR has said, they're not confirming how many cameras are actually on in those garages right now, but they haven't reactivated or put those cameras back because they're not needed. The cars aren't going into the garage. They're not working on the cars. If they fail tech, that's when they'll go into the garage, but for no other reason. And obviously with the rain delay, that's where they had to be parked. So as far as cameras, I was shocked when I found it. I'm like, there's cameras everywhere. But I reached out to a couple of crew chiefs this morning, and that was the answer that I got, which makes sense to me, right? It makes sense why they wouldn't have those on. Okay. So that's the first.
Do you think – so sorry, I'm going to ask a lawyer-like questions here because this is good information. Do you think that everybody would have known that those cameras were not on? And the reason why I ask that is I have no idea if I'm walking up to somebody who has like a Ring camera on their front door, whether it's functional or not. But my assumption is if I see a camera that it's working, right? So do you think the average person was aware that, hey, all these cameras may not be working if, you were walking by one?
I don't know the answer to that. And again, Clay, I mean, there's ways around these cameras, right? They're not necessarily these garages are huge. There's 40 cars. I just said that there's 140,000 square feet of social engagement area inside the garage area. So it's not like you're, walking into this small little area. I don't know the answer to that. Listen, there's limited amount of people at the track right now. We know that. Everything is secure, right? People have to get, their temperatures taken. It's only necessary personnel. So there's all of that, right? And I did hear you guys mention this morning about I know the size of a football stadium. Well, to kind of give you a perspective, Talladega is 270 acres. That's the infield. 270 acres compared to like Bryant-Denny Stadium, which is 13 acres. I looked this up this morning just to kind of give you guys. That's impressive,
by the way, that you have that. So it's a massive infield venue. Yes.
Huge. Right? Now, the garage area is definitely smaller. It's secure. There's fences around them, but there are points, right, that you get into the garage, and they don't have security guards wrapped all the way around the fences. So what happened was most crews, most teams, everyone got released about 4:00 on Sunday. This is kind of the timeline I'm aware of because of the rain delay, and that's when the cars were pushed back into the garage. I believe, based on the statements that we've heard, this is when this article was found. It was found by a crew member. Bubba, according to what I've heard, did not see it. A crew member called NASCAR. Now, why would they tell people? Because I did hear you say this earlier. Why would they let people know before they found it? Well, because it's going to get out, right? And then if it gets out and people find out that NASCAR didn't say that this was found in the garage, that's going to look even worse, right? If NASCAR doesn't release this. Because, they have to make sure Bubba has extra security. When that car was moved back into the garage, they did check the car in the morning to make sure it had not been tampered with. They had extra security for Bubba. Whoever the crew guy that found this, obviously, he's going to talk. The team needs to know. NASCAR officials got involved. So that's why they openly kind of told everyone that this was happening. NASCAR's pretty small area. People do talk. It would have gotten out. I feel like it would have. The FBI is involved. So in terms of what they can say and what they can't say, I mean, you know this better than most, right? I mean, you've got to kind of be a little bit careful about what you say as the investigation is going on. Am I surprised that there wasn't some kind of answer yesterday? A little, but I also thought maybe let's let the race happen and let's get everything in a row, and then let's move forward. I would expect that we're definitely going to hear something today. Something else I want to just kind of mention, and it's about Bubba, right? Because I know all that social media stuff out there right now, Clay. People are kind of, they're insinuating that he or teams may have had something to do with it. And I like many people, I definitely in a lot of situations have skepticisms and all those types of things. So I kind of thought about this in a way that made sense to me. And here it is. So Bubba's been in the sport since 2013, right? 2013. He lost his ride in 2017 and was able to fill in for Eric Almirola at Richard Petty Motorsports when Eric got hurt. That is how he got this chance at Richard Petty Motorsports. Bubba has fought to stay in this sport. And until the last few weeks, he's actually avoided talking about race. He didn't want to be known as a black NASCAR driver. When George Floyd died, when he was murdered, that is when Bubba, and at first Bubba didn't want to talk about it, by the way. He didn't want to be that face, right? And then something changed and something awoke inside of him, and now he is. So my question is why, when we're actually making progress in this sport, like he has been the face of progress. And this act of just disgust, it's a setback. So why would someone who's trying to make progress in a sport that he loves, he's got the support of everybody, I don't understand why people could even look at him and think that he would be responsible for this.
Well, I think they said that NASCAR said that he wasn't involved, right? That he wasn't there, he didn't see it. So
he did not.
The idea that he would be involved, I think, would require a pretty good leap at this point, because if he didn't see it and he wasn't involved in turning it over to NASCAR, you would have to argue that you'd have to take a big leap for him to be involved. So that is something that is out there as a fact. Now, you said that you expect to hear something today. What makes you think that you're going to hear something today? Is that just based on your intuition, or is it like what are you hearing that makes you feel like today could be the day?
I would think that they would have to make some kind of statement. I'm not saying that I think we're going to find out today what happened, but I would think that there has to be some kind of statement, because like you and like me and like everybody that's calling into your show this morning, we do want answers. We want to know how this happened, why this happened, and who did this. And I would think that NASCAR would make some kind of statement, even if it's as simple as like, hey, we're continuing to move forward, we're still investigating, we're doing this, we're doing that. Not saying that we're going to get something like, firm today, but I do think that NASCAR will make some kind of statement.
So this is good info because you've been at Talladega, you understand it. I'm obviously not that familiar with it, but I look at all the stories like these and look for the facts to try to tie them together. Do we have any idea how many people? So all these cars get pulled back because of the rain delay, and they're put into garages. Let me just take a step back and ask this question. Does everybody have an individual garage with its own walls where, like, you would walk in and they would be like, okay, this is Bubba Wallace's garage. This is Jimmy Johnson's garage, right? Like, where you could see the car parked in there and you could like shut down your area, or is it one larger room? Like, what do the garages look like at Talladega?
They are one large building that basically cars park next to each other. They have a stall entrance with a door that closes that stall, right? So each car can kind of pull in, but it is open. Now, I haven't been to the new Talladega garage, but I will tell you how every other garage that I've ever seen, these cars, they literally work right next to each other. Like,
so if you were standing, I'm just trying to visualize it. If you were standing inside of a garage, you can look into it. It's like a horse stall?
Correct. Yes,
okay.
But without like the sides. There's no sides, right? I mean, they just pull in. There's a garage that opens up, a garage door that opens up. You pull in, but you could literally walk. Like if I wanted to walk across from one car to the next, I could walk all the way down. Now, what I was told was that the truck drivers, the hauler drivers, they did bring they have like a crash cart in case they crash, that they can bring the car into the garage. It's got all of your stuff on it. I was told that they brought those into the garage stall. So that's how you know. And also, and they are lined up in the garage based on points. So it's also the way that they park their haulers is based on points. So yes, you do know that you would see the crash cart in there. You would see the 43 Richard Petty Motorsports. You would know that it was Bubba Wallace's garage. But the car did not actually go into that garage until the race was called around 3:30, 4 o'clock on Sunday. That's when the car was brought into the garage.
Would the driver drive the car into the garage?
No. The cars, once it started raining, the cars on pit road were covered up. and left there, and they covered them up to keep them out of the rain. And then the crew would push the car back to the garage. So Bubba would have had nothing to do with that. He was probably back at his hauler. His motorhome, I should say.
So the crew pushes it back. So when you think about it, and I know you're not on the Bible here, but how many people do you think would have been able to have access to a garage like this from 4 p.m., let's say, when they get the cars back into the garage, until later that afternoon when it suddenly becomes a story? Like, are we talking 100 people, 200, 500? Like, what kind of number would you think that they – because the reason why I bring that up is, in theory, that is your suspect group, right? If somebody did this, then it's got to be, we know, somebody who has access to these garages. How many people could have had access to the garages? Kind of a question I'm asking.
Yeah, not many right now. I mean, listen, and there's always speculation that someone could have snuck in, right? That security could have been breached. We had, obviously, I don't know if you saw, there was a plane flying over with a banner that said defund NASCAR with the Confederate flag. There was apparently a couple of protests outside the racetrack on Sunday about the Confederate flag being removed. And so certainly, and I just mentioned 260 acres, right? I mean, someone could have breached security. So I think that's all all of that is on the table right now. And that's obviously why the FBI is involved. This is much bigger than what NASCAR can do. And listen, I mean, all of us want answers, right, Clay? I mean, this is a sport that I've covered for 2 decades. And you know, with NASCAR, listen, this is not a sport that you just kind of show up and you work 16 weeks or 20 weeks and then you go and you have an off season. We spend 40 weeks, 4 days a week, which is why one of the reasons so many people in the garage are taking this personally, because this is not just an attack on Bubba Wallace. This is an attack on every single person that is pushing for change in this sport. And this is, I mean, you saw the drivers, you've seen, I mean, the emotions are so raw and so real from everyone in that garage. And it's a very painful thing that we've dealt with as a community this past weekend.
So I'm circling back around, but do you think it's hundreds? Like, would you think like, it's, like if you were setting it over under, less than that?
Okay. So there's 40-ish cars, right? And then there's, they have 15 essential personnel. They also have some pit crew guys. So yeah, I mean, I would say upwards of 100 total, right? But I don't know what the protocol was in specific terms with Talladega in terms of how many people were able to bring that car back. Yeah. I mean, think about it. The cars were out on the grid during the rain delay for an extended period of time. Teams were back in their haulers. Drivers were at their motorhome. There was a long period of time where those garage stalls were open. I mean, there's a significant period of time where someone could have done this, right? Now, the amount of people that are allowed, quote unquote, are certainly smaller. There's no fans in the garage, even though there were fans in the stands. They're not allowed in the garage right now. So the personnel is limited, absolutely, which is why, I mean, as we mentioned, I don't think this should not be. The issue with the cameras, I think, is the biggest thing, right? Normally, those cameras would be on and operating because there are so many people around. And I believe Bubba Wallace's mom was on Sirius this past weekend, maybe last night, and said that she had heard that there was no video evidence. NASCAR did take a picture, from what I've heard, of this device, this Noose that they found inside the garage, and we have not seen that picture yet. And I know that's one thing that one of your callers asked about, but I have been told that there is a picture of it.
Would it be, so to me, I take a step back and let's think about it. Obviously, you want to catch who might have been responsible for this. If you can't catch who was responsible for this, then the next step to me is you need to have the people who discovered this go talk to the public, right, and answer questions, because there is going to be a lot of questions. And if you're not going to be charging someone with a crime, I think most people out there are going to say, okay, well, I want as much information about this as possible. Does that make sense to you? So if as the days go on, like yesterday, you can at least argue, hey, the race is going on. Like it didn't really, like it would detract if you try to do an arrest, 10 minutes before everybody starts to the race or whatever else. But to me today, and that's what I started off the show by saying, today is an integral day to trying to figure out what exactly happened in terms of this situation. If you can't resolve it today, then I think a lot of people start to say, okay, what actually is going on, right? Like that's the response that we're going to see.
I agree with you 100%, Clay. I mean, we all want answers, right? I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think every single person, whether you're a NASCAR fan or not, wants answers, because this is disgusting display that yes, I mean, and it can't just go away, right? We need to find out what happened. I agree with you 100%. I from what I've heard, they've questioned people again, because listen, people talk, right? And if something happened in this garage, or if someone was involved in this, I do believe it's going to get out. I do not believe that this is going to, this is certainly not going to go away. It's not, right? And I agree with you. We do need answers.
All right, Shannon, I got this a lot online. I bet you have gotten it as well. Is it possible that this is neither a intentional hoax nor a noose, that this could be a rope that potentially is used in the garages that just happened to be in the Bubba Wallace vicinity, and people were particularly sensitive and nervous, and so they believed that it might be a threat, when in reality it could have just been a rope? In other words, there's a lot of people out there who say, I'm skeptical, I don't believe it. There's a lot of people who say, I do believe it. Is it possible it's somewhere in between those two things?
I would really, my gut tells me, because obviously this is something that I thought of as well, because you go, I can't imagine
it's just
that
so
someone
insanely
would put
stupid,
this,
right? That someone would
Not
do
only
this, because
stupid,
if someone did it, it's racist, but you're risking you'll be banned for NASCAR from life, and you would also probably go to jail, all for what exactly? Okay, so if there are lots of people out there who are like, oh, this is clearly like a racist act, this is unacceptable, and everybody would agree if that's the case, I think almost entirely in my audience. There are also people out there who say, I'm just naturally skeptical. And then is there a middle ground where it's an abundance of caution, and then you look at it and you're like, I'm not sure what might have been going on, because there are pictures out there that are circulating on the internet of different ropes and different things, and I'm sure there are lots of different ropes involved. I'm not an expert. I don't know how you fix cars and what you do, but I'm sure there are ropes involved in that. Is it possible that it's not criminal, that it was a abundance of caution? Is there any possibility of that?
Yeah, again, Clay, my mind immediately went like, I really hope that this is not true. I hope it's a mistake. I hope it's something that was just, in there. I would doubt. Listen, I think that they're capable human beings that walked into that garage, and I think that they know the difference between just a rope hanging there and something that looks like a noose, right? I think that they would be able to differentiate between those two. Now, Steve Phelps, who's the president of NASCAR, was asked if this was the rope, because they actually have ropes that pull the garage stalls down.
Yes.
Like your garage, so it would hang on to the outside of the clamp or whatever that you would pull down. And so there are ropes, and he was asked if it was that rope, and he did not answer that question. He would not answer that question. So again, I don't know what it looks like, because I haven't seen a picture and no one has seen the picture. Is it possible that there might have been something hanging in there that was a rope from the outside of the garage, or something that went on the car? Sure. But I would like to think that someone who looks at it would know the difference between that and know the difference between what a noose looks like hanging in someone's garage. And if they're going to go and say that this is the specific thing that it was, and bring this attention and get the FBI involved and get, extra security around Bubba, I would hope that they would know the difference between one and the other.
Amen. But also you can see a situation where if you're hyper on alert, where you're like, you're going to be more apprehensive than you ordinarily would given the situation, which is reasonable. This is why, by the way, it's so incumbent upon NASCAR to come out, I think today, honestly, and answer the question about what exactly is the story here, and also release the picture, right? If there is a picture of this noose, what does it look like? Is it similar to the rope that would have been used to pull the garage door down? Is it something totally different than that? That would go a long way towards answering these questions as well.
I'm on board with you, and I'm with everyone else. I want answers as well. I mean, this is a sport that I've been a part of and have, care very much about and have, this is a sport that I'm a part of, and so I certainly want answers as well. Again, I hope that they would know the difference between the two, and this stuff, if it was a mistake, I would venture to say that they would err on the side of caution rather than just kind of going forward and moving forward with something as disgusting as what they've said that was in this garage. So that's kind of where I lay right now. And but I want answers just as much as everybody else.
Everybody does. Shannon, you're fantastic. Thank you for getting up early with us. As always, we will talk to you hopefully next week, and we'll have some resolution on this.
Okay. Thanks, Clay. Thanks, Clay. Thanks, Clay.